Good morning, everyone. I am Lauren Milojevic. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Simplify. Today we have Beth McBreen presenting on SAP Analytics Cloud Financial Planning from start to finish. And at the end of our webinar, we're going to be giving away a free badge to our June event, where we'll be hosting an Analytics Innovation Summit on June 18th and 19th in Chicago at the Roby Hotel, followed up with a Cubs White Sox game on that Tuesday evening. So if you're interested, please comment in the questions section so we make sure to consider you for the free badge. And after the webinar, I'll be reaching out to you guys with an email and letting you know if you won or not. So yeah, we're excited to have you join us, and let us know if you're interested in the questions section. And right now, I will hand it over to Beth.
All right, thanks, Lauren. Thanks to everyone who is joining the webinar today. As Lauren mentioned, today's topic, we're going to focus on the planning functionality, kind of key terms, function feature around planning in SAP Analytics Cloud. So I have a few slides to kind of talk through some of that terminology and understand what the capabilities are. Hopefully, if you're joining the webinar, you have a baseline understanding of SAP Analytics Cloud, but in case you don't, Analytics Cloud really is a strategic solution for SAP. It's a solution that allows you, web-based, that allows you to handle your planning, reporting. There's the visualization aspect, dashboards. So some pretty cool stuff there's simulations, predictive analytics. So there's numerous things that you can actually do with Analytics Cloud. Big data sits on HANA Cloud. So being able to handle large volumes of data. And again, kind of the overall planning, discovering, visualizations, and then the predictive analytics. That kind of, in a nutshell, is what the SAC solution is really all about. When we're kind of focusing on in today's webinar is just the planning piece, right? So want to kind of focus on what the key areas are, some of the key functions. The first thing is kind of the overall budget preparation and workflow as it comes to planning. And I usually, kind of back up and take a look at some of the overall terminology and what they mean. And I'm going to kind of go through those first. But there's what we call stories. We have terminology such as canvas, grid, right? These are different options for data templates. Version management, I'm going to show you this in the live demonstration in a little bit, as far as my scenario planning, some of the nice features that go along with that. Disaggregation, so I'll show you a lot of that as well. This is a really nice feature where, in some other solutions, you're always having to plan at the base level, right, of your hierarchies. Where instead, within the Analytics Cloud solution, I can plan at any level I want. I can plan at total products. I can plan at a summary level or a product grouping, or I can plan at that base level product. So really gives you flexibility in the solution as to how you want to plan. Input tasks, being able to share the data actions, and advanced calculations. So let's talk about those for a moment. Stories is really the backbone, allows you to build and maintain your planning templates, right? So this is where you're building your planning templates. This also may allow you to have charts, tables, other visualizations that go alongside as people are updating their plans. You can have your actuals, and it also can be for your reporting as well. So again, stories is kind of that overall, tells a story about the data. It really is kind of where that term comes from. So whether it's a data grid, whether it's a chart, or other form of visualization, all of that is kind of composed within a story in Analytics Cloud. The version management, again, allows you to create and copy different versions of data. So you have understanding of both the public version of data and private versions. So this actually makes it really nice and flexible for the users that maybe have a working budget that's going on, and they actually want to make a copy of that and do a private version and do a little scenario planning off on their own, and then decide whether they want to go ahead and keep that. They can publish it to their working budget, or they can then go into their working budget and make updates. But it allows, kind of maybe even like that sandbox environment for your users. So I'll show you a little bit about that when we get into the demonstration. Again, as part of the budget preparation, there's functionality in Analytics Cloud called input tasks. This allows you, helps with kind of the overall workflow, right? It's used to gather feedback. You can take this, for example, you may want to send a link out. You can automatically have email generation to your users to say, complete your planned units, right? We want you to update your units. It's created, the input task is created, automatically sent to that colleague, and then they enter in their information and return the task. It shows that it can be a completed task, right? Whether it's been completed or not. So again, kind of overall in the workflow capabilities helps kind of maintain and manage that budget process. Along with those input tasks, there's also the calendar processes that allow you to link the input tasks together, create multiple tasks, and again, kind of allows that collaboration between those planners and managers. Okay, so that was kind of the budget preparation, some of the things that we would do up front, building our templates. Now once that preparation and workflow is kind of all set together, some of the other things that, as kind of core functions or terminology that we talk about in Analytics Cloud is the disaggregation and allocation functionality. So for the planning models, data is stored at leaf levels. Okay, the parent nodes show the aggregated values, right? That happens automatically. There's no batch process or anything that has to happen there. But as I mentioned before, that disaggregation functionality allows you to enter information at parent or total intersections of data. That may mean, total year. Also, maybe I want to plan it an annual basis, and then I want to plan at, a total product or total customer. That all allows you, this functionality allows you to do that within Analytics Cloud. Not only that, but there's disaggregation types, which even gives you more flexibility. So this actually allows you to, again, kind of the default is sum, right? So if you are entering something at a top level, it's going to make sure that all of your leaf level underneath it sum up to that parent. But in some cases, it also allows you to do, when we look at things like average sales price, wanting to modify at maybe a total product grouping, what the average sales price is, and then we have all of our products underneath there, it will actually provide an average. It's not going to basically, have all of your leaf levels sum up. They will all average up to that total. So that's kind of nice in that, like I said, in an example such as like average sales price, we see that a lot. Of course, none, if you want it to not sum up, but just take the same, takes the same value as the source. There's other options like first and last, where if you're planning by quarters, this is probably the only time that I've really seen this is, if you're planning on a quarterly basis, but again, it needs to be stored down to the leaf level. It'll take, you have $1 million for Q1. It's just going to put the $1 million in March, if we're looking at a calendar view. So it will always put it in the last month of the quarter. So that allows you to, again, kind of have that flexibility based on how you're forecasting or how you're planning, where you want your data to go if you're planning at a higher level than the leaf level, the base level. So again, just a quick example. As I mentioned before, you can enter it at a total level. So you want to do annual planning, kind of at that 2020 annual level, quarterly, or go down to that monthly leaf level, planning at total products or different product groupings versus the base. All of that is available. The allocation options is also nice functionality with Analytics Cloud. So we kind of have standard, spreading, where I can take a value and I can say, again, when we do use the disaggregation, this allows us then to maybe take it a step further and then fine tune it, right, or modify it a little bit more. It will take, when you disaggregate, if you put a total in, it's going to base off of the current weighted average of what is in your leaf level or your base level. But let's say you perform that, you put in 500,000, it spreads it down accordingly based on what's there today. If there is no values, it spreads it evenly across your base level. But then something like spreading says, you know what, actually I want Q1 I don't want it spread evenly over the quarters. Maybe I want Q1 to have a little bit heavier. So I can adjust the percentages there. So spreading allows you to do that. Distribute allows you to basically take an amount and distribute it across. So I could say, I've got my gross margin for 2019 actual, and I want to go ahead and distribute that accordingly into, my 2019 or my 2020 budget, for example. So there's spreading, there's distribution, and then there's also the capability to assign. And this really doesn't link any type of, basically spreading or distribution points to a certain, amount coming from prior history or current months or current year that you want to make some adjustments to. Assign is really where you're going to assign a certain amount. You say, okay, $1 million, and you will actually determine where it's going to go, how much. If you want it to weight a certain, carry a certain weight, or if you want to actually put dollars in, all of that functionality exists on the assign capability. So those are the 3 allocation options. The last one is actual an allocation process. So this is actually where we get a little bit more in depth and detail. We set up an allocation process. So this may be, the example in the screenshot I have here would be, taking personnel costs and if we want to get down to like a product profitability, right? Taking some of those operating expenses, being able to, based on percentage of sales, being able to spread that across to all the products. That's what the allocation process actually does within. And so that's a built-in engine in the Analytics Cloud tool. That allows you to get far more granular and flexible as we talk about allocations. So finally, what aids in the budgeting process is the data actions and advanced formulas. And this really allows you to build those drivers for the driver-based planning. It gives you a lot of that functionality, allows you to have copy functions to help seed budget volumes, for example. So a lot of that is very important when we're trying to build a process and trying to build an efficient and automated process where I just want to change quantities, and pull, change my levers on my drivers and not have to have more of a static or updating just dollar amounts. So data actions is a way to kind of chain these steps together, right? So I may have a batch process that is for my plan that is going to calculate my gross sales, that's going to calculate my cost of sales, basically to be able to calculate down to gross profit. So I can have these different rules that I chain them together. And then you'll see when I get over to the demo where we have a data action that's a batch process. So in my story, I have a button that I can click and it runs this process for me. Okay, so that's kind of what the data action does. Within the data action is the scripting or the logic, right? So allows you to, has fairly intuitive syntax, I would say. That again, this is where you can create those drivers, where you can create the business rules that you want set up that, for the basis of your planning process. So your advanced formulas get put in and get assigned into with the data action, and that's what executes the calculations within the story. So you'll see that. Finally, the data action also has that copy data function. So you just could be copying, versions or, things along those lines. But what we've seen that is very helpful is being able to, do things like seed the budget, right? We want to take prior year history and maybe have it as a starting point so that it's not a zero-based budget. So things like that will allow you to have, this copy data function allows you to do that and kind of copy things from, maybe from one year to another. So that's some of the functionality that's allowed there. Finally, just to kind of, before I get over to the live demo, kind of talking about some of these key concepts as we're dealing with planning. Obviously, the output at the end of the day then is the reporting, right? And being able to report against budget against actuals, just having budget packages. Really, within you've got your web-based reporting, via the stories in Analytics Cloud. There also is the capability to connect if you currently leverage Analysis for Office or from an AO. If you currently have that add-in included in your Excel environment, you can pull that in. Kind of the direct reporting right out of Analytics Cloud allows you, there's some different templates, report formats, things that you can do in terms of formatting and making the template, the reports look the way that you would like them to. I would probably say, in my opinion, leveraging Analysis for Office is going to get you, kind of the nice print-ready standard reporting that you might be used to today. So that functionality, that's kind of the tool set that you would use for that end state reporting. Okay. So I'm going to just switch gears here and log into my Analytics Cloud. I'm going to close these out here. Okay. So I start on the home page just to kind of level set real fast before I jump into some of those planning concepts that we talked about. My home page is customizable. This is what I want to see. I can have visualizations. I can have recent stories so that I can quickly get back to the templates and the reports that I use most frequently. But again, I can kind of set that up. It tells me hello, my name. I can go in, I can edit that home screen. But drawing your eyes to the left here, this is kind of your main menu. So here are the typical tasks and things that you would be doing in Analytics Cloud. You would be creating stories, creating models, creating different processes. You can browse, right? So this is where I can go in and I can browse my models. I can browse all the stories and all my additional files, so within a file directory. One of the things that I like to point out, actually, if I go and browse into files real quickly, is the capability of the content network. So within your files, I can have all of my planning. You can see here I've got planning process and demo files, but the content network actually has a lot of pre-built business content for you to use. It's free when you purchase Analytics Cloud. You have it there. There's a number of different, again, if I click on business content here, numerous, where it really gives you a lot of different content, some sample templates. So you don't necessarily have to start from scratch if you don't want to. You can take on some of the existing pre-built templates for, again, specific. Some of these are very specific, some are broader. But anyway, just kind of wanted to share that as we talk about planning and respect to, how do I build the planning templates? Some of those are already pre-built for you that you can leverage and then just modify and tweak. So what I'm going to do to start off with is, I'm going to use this graph actually also is a launch point for me. I've created this launch point for my planning process that allows me to go directly to my process steps. Okay, so essentially I can have a home screen or a menu page here that is going to allow me to, again, have some visualizations. Maybe this is a dashboard that I set up that I can continuously come back to and check. Here I'm taking a look at, okay, my working budget is maybe my bottoms up. My target is obviously my top down that I've placed. How close am I? Right now I've got a stretch here, right? So how close am I? I can have these visualizations that all update real time as changes are being made to the working budget. I can see, continuously how close I'm getting, or where I might need to make adjustments. As far as kind of the budget process steps, I have things like target setting, right? And then we have maybe our sales and our margin planning. You may have operating, or I have an example of salary planning, right? So there's different buckets. You can have multiple models. This brings it all together. You can have multiple models, one that might be focused on salary, one that might be focused on sales or margin planning, and then one that might be kind of your consolidated view of the plan. That all exists within Analytics Cloud. If I click on target setting, we'll just kind of talk through a couple of the key functionalities here. My first template here is setting targets. And really what I want to focus on here is if I select, I click in onto my template here, up on my toolbar. So again, kind of level setting, this is my template space. I've got a toolbar up here that I have different functionalities that I can use. When I actually select the template, you'll notice that I have an option for version management. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Really nice and flexible where, again, I have public versions. I may have, I'm going to have actual, probably going to have forecast, probably going to have budget. Maybe I have different, here in this case, I have different versions of the budget because I want a top-down target view and I want more of that bottoms-up working budget view. But as I mentioned before, as a user, I can easily come in and say, I need to make a copy of the working budget. And I'm going to call this, Working Bud version 2, since I already have a version 1 out there. Allows me to copy it from the budget category. Do I want to copy all data or do I want a clean slate? Allows me to have those options, and then I can just say okay. And just like that, a version has been created. And you can just see it actually automatically populated in my template here. So then I can go in and I can make some, maybe high-level adjustments or actually get into the granularity and leverage it and kind of make adjustments to my private version. So just want to show you that functionality that exists with the version management. Go over to a different view. Again, so I can come in here and I can make changes to, if I come up here, this is where I talked about the allocation capabilities, right? Spreading, distribution, assigning, and then that executing an actual allocation process, right? So having the capability to do that, as I mentioned before, you could come in here and leverage spreading functionality where I may say, I want these, this is currently how my dollars are spread, right? My 3.7 million. I can make the weighted adjustments, I can make dollar adjustments in order to reassign those, right? And then I can just go ahead and apply the spreading. So that may be, again, from a high level kind of target setting. Notice that, again, I can have both my template and then visualizations, really nice and easy and flexible to work with those. Kind of talking through some of the other capabilities, I'm going to go ahead and open up the sales planning. We talked about disaggregation. So disaggregation, again, being able to plan at different levels. We also talked about the functionality called advanced formulas and data actions. So here's another view of a template that we created. We've got all sorts of filters on this one, right? So the other one was the top level. We're doing things all at all countries, all company codes, all customers, all of that. Now, when we actually get down into the granularity where we want to go ahead and update our sales volumes, for example, now I've got all sorts of different levers where I can decide whether I want to look at, all countries, or I want to focus on just Canada. Once I make any adjustments to my, I can make my adjustments, there we go, to my country, then it will go ahead and automatically refresh just with Canada. I'll go back and set it back to all. But again, these are, some of the different customer group, and all of that will automatically filter. These are kind of what we call our page filters that allow us to make any changes within our page. You'll also notice if I draw your eyes up here on our template, I have story filters. So this may be, in this case, I only have one tab here. I have sales volume. But you noticed on the target one, I can actually add and have an entire workbook here of different templates or reports for that matter, or visualizations. So a story filter will allow me to basically keep it, if we want to select, this is, company code 1000, this is going to be their workbook. You can filter it just on that, or, particular sales organization. So that's what a story filter does, opposed to a page filter really is, kind of slicing and dicing the data that is within the page and within your template. So I have here also that data action trigger I talked about. And so I have seed volumes for the budget. Right now, I have nothing in here. I can see what my actuals are for 2018, but I want to use that as a starting point. So I can press the play button here and just say I want to run that on my annual budget, run it against my annual budget, and it'll go ahead and automatically. You can see that running this is very fast, right? That's having that HANA engine underneath, being able to run these calculations, and they run very quickly. And, again, in this example of seeding several different countries, materials, customers. So you can obviously see that it matches. Now I have the ability to change this to be another dollar amount. I can also use my toolbar up here, and I can actually, in my toolbar or directly in my cell, I can say, you know what, I just want to take this number and I want to increase it by 10%. So by doing that, it automatically tells me how many values have been changed, automatically changes my top level number, and adjusts everything beneath it. So that's, again, automatic disaggregation, right? I could do that at any level. I could do that at total customer level, total country level. Here I just picked total everything, right? So I've got total materials, countries, customers, and I went ahead and made a quick adjustment. So that's kind of the disaggregation functionality, as well as this button over here, being the seeding the volumes. So if I go back over and just show you quickly one additional concept, which was just when we were talking about the disaggregation types, and that is having the disaggregation type of average. So you'll notice here I've got more data action triggers, right? So this allows me to take actuals. We've got advanced formulas that will take actuals and calculate my average, my ASP, based off of history, and then populate it into my budget, is basically what these two are doing. They're also calculating what the discount rates or rebates are as well, and pre-populating that. So all of this information with just a couple clicks and 10 seconds, it's populating my entire budget for me and allows a starting point. But this is what I was mentioning, where I can come in and I can adjust an average sales price to be, 52, 50 cents, some really expensive shower gel and nail oil. But when I do that, it will again then apply it so that the average is 52.50, right? I'm no longer doing a sum. So that's something that, definitely is a nice benefit when we're looking at being flexible with how we're planning and wanting to make adjustments. I see that as a really nice function there. So, kind of talked about the disaggregation types. As far as the calendar goes, ask me if I want to publish it. I'm going to go ahead and publish my changes. Finally, I'll kind of leave you with the calendar view. So this allows me to go back to where I have my process. So I can look at it day, week, month. If I go back, I can see here in the month of March is when I had my sales planning. So I can go ahead and this would be assigned to me. If I click on it, it'll give me some details as far as the overall status. It's in progress, how many files are out there. Do I want to go ahead and submit it, reject it? So there's, again, kind of looking at the workflow. There is workflow capabilities as well. So kind of leaving you with that. So I feel like I rushed through the demo a little bit. Hopefully you got a little bit of insight as far as some of the planning capabilities within Analytics Cloud, learning some of the terminology that we use, around the disaggregation and the advanced formulas functionality. If you have questions, please include them. You can include them in the questions here. You can reach out. We'll go back to my last slide here that has my email on it. If you would like to directly reach out, if you want to see anything more, I'm happy to also provide one-on-one demonstrations that can give you a little bit better feel, maybe for how your company handles the planning process and how would that fit into Analytics Cloud. So, again, I thank you so much for joining. As Lauren mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, if you're interested in joining us for our June summit, it's going to be a great event, a great time. Please, if you are interested, we are giving away a free badge, and make sure to comment that you're interested in the questions box today. So thank you so much for joining, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.